Hey everybody, this is Vel Omarr. I'm calling and talking to you from Smyrna, Georgia. And we're going to transport ourselves back down home, a little place that I was born, called Mayersville, Mississippi. Better known by the town folk as Mayersville, Mayersville, and Mayersville. However you were saying it back then. We have our special guest on the line right now, Mr. Robert Carmack, who's going to co-host this with me. He's also a Southern guy from down in Louisiana. I think we got some people down in Louisiana too. It started out down there at least. And we have a special guest on the line, Miss Jean Payne, and a very special guest, the actual mayor of the town of Mayersville, Mississippi, Ms. Linda Williams. And give him the full last name, Linda.
Linda Williams Short.
Linda Williams Short.
Uh-huh.
And we welcome her, and we welcome all of you. Thank you all for tuning in. And we're going to take a little trip, like I said, back down home in the town where I was born. Actually, I was born down in Issaquah County, Mississippi, which is right outside of Mayersville, Mississippi. So I'm going to turn this one over to Robert Carmack right now, and he's going to ask me a few questions so we can stay on track. Hey, Robert, are you ready? If you're ready, turn your mic, unmute your mic. Unmute your mic. So in the meantime, until he gets this, unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
I got you. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to you and let you take it from here. So you had some questions that you wanted to ask me about us folks who were born down in Mayersville, Mississippi.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say hello and greetings from California to all of you folks out of Mayersville, or however way you pronounce it. And good day to the mayor and Miss Jean, and as well as Val. Val, I guess the first question I would like to know is, let's talk a little bit about what it was like just before you were born. What was that city like before you were born, like your parents and grandparents and stuff?
Well, I can only go by, of course, what they told me. Oh, by the way, Robert, turn yourself down just a little bit.
Okay.
I can only go by what they told me. And I can imagine that when my grandparents on both sides of the family, the Trasses and the Turners, got word that I was on the way, I think everybody must have been in some shock. Because my mother, I'm sure she was known as a very good girl. But that didn't take anything away from her, because she was waiting for me to come and be a member of the families. So it was, when I came on the scene and was able to really know that I was anywhere, or even in my mind, my ears picked up this sound. One of the first sounds I think I picked up was my granddaddy, Zeb Turner, who was the deacon of St. Peter Church, doing something like, he's the deacon, so it was his job to get the prayer started. So he would get down on his knees near the chair that he was sitting and say something like, I love the Lord, he heard my cry. I think they call it a Dr. Watt, don't they, Mayor Linda?
It's that pause in there.
And, that's just the style, and I'm setting this all up to let everybody know where I think the idea came for me and anyone else who really got into music, got into soul, gospel, or blues, where we got that idea that we needed to sing. And it all started, I believe, when we first heard those sounds coming out of church or coming out of the field, or sometimes later on coming out of the juke joints and the cafes. So I think that's what it was like. And my mother, she told me a story. She was saying that, my father and I called Roosevelt Trask. That was his name, Roosevelt Trask. I was named after him, became a junior. I was also called Vel, Little Vel. And, people would always tell me how much I looked like him, even as a little boy. I think my Aunt Dean, Linda's mother, Mayor Linda's mother, I remember waking up one morning and she was standing over me and she said, "Look at that boy. Look at him. Just sleeping, just like his daddy." So I didn't know what was going on, but people made a big deal out of who I was because I was the son of my daddy. And of course, my mother, Sarah Turner, she fell in love with my father because my father was loved by so many. All the women loved my father, I'm sure. And my father loved all the women. So, but like my brother Billy would say, we ain't gonna get into that right now. But that's how I'm sure my mother, she told me that she had to find out. She had to find out for sure before she could get involved with him, whether or not he was her cousin. Because in that town of Mayersville, everybody had a potential of being your cousin. And so she found out. And so the way she found out, we had an elderly relative that came by the house. And my mother was very intent on knowing whether or not Roosevelt Trask was her cousin. This is before I was born. And so once she found that out, then, hey, here I am. That's it. Are you still there, Robert? Okay, you're gonna have to unmute.
You had said there was some issue about your parents, whether or not they were cousins or so. Why was this an issue? I mean, I know why it was an issue, but why was it an issue for your family?
You mean to know whether or not we were related?
Yeah, was it because it was so small that it was the pool, so to speak, of women or available married types?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It was because there were, I think it was about 300 and some people in town, the population. I don't know if that was just about 300 and some people back then. I don't know if that included all of the town folks, including the white folks and the black folks, but it was a very small town. So chances are you were related to whoever, especially the black folks and probably some of the white ones too, who knows?
Yeah, we know that history. Well, what about, what were some of the early influences of you as it relates to your music background later, that was early influences that led you to move in the direction of singing or performing?
Well, like I said, the gospel, hearing that, and that was pretty much embedded in my spirit and my subconscious, because as a child, there was this thing, in the churches down in the South, and they probably still like that. The last time I went down there, you can, when you were keeping time with the music, you heard the hand clap, foot, 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 that was it, and that was it. So and when you hit the foot stumps, that made the church and the whole church kind of just vibrate like a drum. And I think you growing up in Louisiana probably heard the same thing.
I went to well, the church down the street from my house where I grew up was Bright Star Baptist Church, and nothing sounded better than that Sunday morning pianist playing on that big old upright piano. Man, it sounded so sweet. Even as a kid, I could recognize how sweet that piano sounded.
Well, you all were kind of a little ahead of us because we didn't have a piano that I remember, or did we? I don't think we had a piano in 19 in the 50s when I was born. I think that came along probably later. But just to finish the answer on your question, there was a singer, and this singer was called Lil Walter. Lil Walter had a song out. I think this might have been a little later, but he had a song out called
59, I believe.
It's called
I think it was 1959.
59, yeah. Well,
I think so.
So anyway, a little later on, and I could swear that he was singing about my great grandmama, because my great grandmama and Linda's great grandmama was they called her Babe, and all of us, we called her my Babe. And my Babe was the mother of my grandmama Jank. And the song was by Lil Walter, and it was called My Babe. My baby don't stand no cheating, my babe. Oh yes, you don't stand no cheating, my babe. Oh yes, you don't stand no cheating. Don't stand none of that midnight creeping, my babe. And I say, oh, he's singing about my grandma, my babe.
Boy, that must have made you feel real proud.
Right. Well, until I learned better, of course.
Until you learned better, of course.
Yeah, she was still alive at the time. She was a little lady with long, grayish black hair with I remember her with two braids hanging down on both sides of her shoulders, looking like a little Indian lady. So, do you remember that, Linda, or was she around when you? Yeah, she was around. Yeah. So, but that was one of the first starts of me really getting into music that was outside of the church.
What is it about small towns that character that sort of sets molds inside of its people as they go out into the world and become whom they become? What is it about small towns that has that sort of motherly protection around them and solidifying their, just give them that comfort so they can go out there and then reflect all of that type of experience and put it into a song or put it into a performance?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it when you say mother. You're talking about something, a nurturing kind of feeling. Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. The whole town. When I talk about Mayersville, Mississippi now, I remember it as a place where you were not just the children of your immediate parents or your grandparents. Everyone took a hand in making sure you did right and were not doing wrong. And if they saw you, then they would take care of themselves, and then they would tell your parents or your grandparents. So it was a nurturing feeling of where you knew that everyone in town had some kind of interest and care for you. And I think that goes a long way in making us who we are, from that era at least.
Sorry about that. What was it like coming?
Keep yourself on, Robert.
Okay. What was it like coming up as a kid playing? Or did you go? Were you a hunter? Did you go out in the woods and fish? I mean, what did you do as a kid growing up there?
Yeah, I consider myself a hunter. I hunted rocks and bumblebees, grasshoppers.
So you was quite young.
I could find to play with.
And you was quite young.
No, I was from the time I could get up and walk, I'm sure. But yeah,
Did you make your own toys? I know I did. Me and my cousins, we made our own toys. We had our own little special toys. We made little, we took the tops from a lard can. We made, I guess those were the early days of a Frisbee. And we made wheel rolls where we nailed it into a plank and rolled it on the ground. It even had a little gear on it. And then we had I love Sky King. It was a TV show. We made these little, we tear off these little veneer things off the old chest of drawers and throw it up in there. And we say, Sky King. So did you have little toys and stuff that you made when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. We made toys out of, let's see, paper. We made paper airplanes that we could actually fly. We made toys out of the spools of that the thread came off of. Made what we call caterpillars. We made toys out of mud. Yeah, we made toys out of corn cobs and planks of little flat planks of wood where you could twirl them around and they make a motor sound in the air. Yeah, so a lot of times we did that, and we didn't really miss the toys that we may have seen later on when we finally did get a television. We didn't miss those toys, but we did have those too. We didn't have to make all of them. I'd go over to Mama Jane, Daddy Sam's, my other grandparents' house, and they would make sure that we got some of the real toys, I would say, from the store. I said the store toys, because what we were making, they were real toys for us too.
Let me actually walk us through what it would be like on a Christmas day, growing up. Say, like you were 5 or 6 years old. What would a typical day be like? What would, like, when you wake up in the morning, you go to the tree, or do everybody just gather around the breakfast table? What happened?
Well, I don't remember having a tree. I don't in either one of my grandparents' house. And as far as I can tell you, one of the most painful things that happened to me on around Christmas, we would have sparkles, where you just put a match to them and they sparkle all over the place. Then we'd have like firecrackers, cap guns and things like that, but one of the most painful things that happened to me around Christmas time was I was sitting out on the porch in front of, right in the space, Linda, where you are right now, when the old house was there. And I had some firecrackers and I would strike them match and throw them out in the yard and listen to them pop. And then I struck the match and threw it out in the yard, and nothing happened. So I ran out there and I grabbed it, and then I saw that the stem had burned off, but it didn't pop. So I heard that you can just break them in half, which I did. I broke it in half, and you could just strike light it, and then it'll fizz. So I did that, and I struck the match and pop.
I did that.
Now, but you know what that felt like? You ever had anybody hit you on the hand with a hammer?
Yep. That's exactly what it feels like.
Right. Or frostbitten hands.
Quick.
It feels like this. Feels about the same way. Yeah, your hand aches to the bone. So, but other than that, yeah, I loved, especially going over to my father's parents' house, and because they would I guess take more care to get us some of the store-bought toys. They may have had a little bit more money than my mother's parents. But let me just see, Linda, do you want to say something about that as you growing up in the same household? Because Linda is my father's sister's daughter.
Oh, okay.
I remember Linda. Let me just bring Linda in. I remember Linda as a little sandy-haired girl.
Sandy-haired.
Red face and freckles.
Really?
Yeah, and now look at it.
Still there.
She's the beauty of Mayersville.
Yeah. But
Linda, what was it like? Was she she was a little girl when you were growing up there, Val?
Well, yeah, she was a little girl when I was growing up, and then I moved to Chicago, and then I was able to come back I'm not going to say what year she was born because that's up to her to let us know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know anyways. I'm not gonna
I was just going to ask some questions about, but I better not, because then when
Why
people are,
not?
well,
I'm
she can
modest.
talk
I'm
for
very
herself.
modest.
What you say,
Yes,
Linda?
and no, I'm very modest because I was born in 1966. So it's just like I just got here, okay?
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Yeah, that was around the
1966.
time.
Hey, that's
But
really
about
interesting.
that question that I asked you about the growing up and what Robert had asked me about the Christmas and all of that.
hmm hmm But definitely growing up with my grandmother, Mama Jank, as he said, his grandmother, Mama Jank, and Daddy Sam, as he called him. I just thought that we were the more fortunate in the neighborhood, I would think, because I've heard horrible stories about other children that didn't have things that we grew up with. So I
Yes.
think we were truly fortunate to have the parents that we had, the grandparents that we had. And of course, being a little redhead, freckle faced baby girl, they literally took me from my mom. So I was like their baby. So I grew up in the house with them, and I'm truly blessed to have that opportunity to have that relationship with my grandparents because they truly mold me into the person that I am today.
Yes.
Because my grandfather, his work ethic, oh my Lord, I mean, that was a working kid. Daddy Sam was the worker. My grandmother, Janie, she was well soft spoken. Mama Jane didn't do a whole lot of talking or whatever, but my grandfather, he wasn't really vocal, but the memories that I remember of him has always been a working guy. And one of the horrible stories I would think of as growing up in that household, I remember they would always tell me my grandfather used to sell ice, and ice would be sold in blocks. And my grandfather would sell ice to the people to put in their ice box. But then there was this white guy that sold the same ice that my grandfather sold. How
Yeah.
about they wouldn't buy my grandfather's ice because it wasn't cold as the white man's ice?
I got to remember that one.
That's a
Do
neat
you?
trick. I wonder how they did that.
How did they do that? His ice wasn't as
How
cold
do
as
they ever?
yeah, yeah. But guess what? This guy was able to still, maintain a household. Literally not at the time people were doing sharecropping. No,
Yeah.
my grandfather owned the land that I live on right now, and I'm truly grateful for that. He didn't have to sharecrop with anyone, and that was a plus for back in the day for us to own land. Oh,
Yeah.
and so I just feel truly blessed to be an heir of someone of that magnitude as my granddad and my grandmother.
Yes. Same here. Same here. And I want to add one more thing about Daddy Sam. My granddaddy Zeb, he wouldn't work on nobody's plantation. But he wouldn't stop us from going out and earning a few dollars if we wanted to do it. And the only one that he would allow us to go out with on his truck was Daddy Sam, because he knew he would take care of us and he wouldn't take no stuff. Yeah.
When you were growing up there, what was some of the foods that you were fed or did you eat? Were they just everyday wholesome Southern style food or special? Or some days you didn't know what you were going to eat? You ate vegetables, no meat or meat.
Well, even though we didn't know what we were going to eat, we knew we were going to eat. And like my granddaddy Zebedee, he was a hunter, and he had his own land too. That's one great thing about both sets of our grandparents is they had their own land. And my grandfather would wake up pre-dawn in the morning and go out with his little kerosene lit cap on and his shotgun and rifles. He'd come back with anything like coon, come back with squirrels, come back sometime with blackbirds. and we were going to eat one way or the other. And it was also my uncle Eddie, who was the same age as I am, basically. He was born 3 weeks before I was, and so he and I. It was our job when our grandfather Zeb would slaughter a hog. It was our job to haul away the things that we didn't eat. And hey, we didn't eat no chitlins. So, and he made sure that we had to bury that. So everything else that came out of the hog, it was our job to put it in the boiling pot, black pot out in the yard, and scrape all the hair off and all of that. I know some people, that might turn some people's stomach, but that's what we had to do. And we learned various other things about surviving and eating without having to go to the store. We learned how to dig peanuts with my granddaddy Zeb. We learned how to go out and collect pecans, because he would take us out in the next yard or next land of the people that are next to us, and he'd climb up in the tree, pecan tree, and shake the pecans down. We had our burlap sacks, or we had the 5-gallon buckets, and we would load those up. He would take us into town, into whatever store he took us in, and have us sell them to the storekeeper. So that's what, that kind of rearing up made me basically who I am today. If I can't get work by going out looking for it, I will try and create it. Hence what I'm doing now.
Gotcha. That's a unique situation. The reason I asked that, because I think most people that come from small towns, at least the people that I know, especially coming from small Southern, during the Jim Crow era, as I and you did, just growing up, sometimes you didn't determine. I know you guys were in a unique situation because everybody feared or respected your grandparent, your grandfather, Zebedee, and they knew your dad and mom and aunt and aunts and uncles. Well, for me, it was similar. However, it was a little bit different. Sometimes my grandmother on my father's side picked cotton, whereas my grandmother on my mother's side, her mother, she was part Indian, and she used to tell me about Oklahoma all the time, and her people and her mother. And one of the things I was going to ask you about, did they have these little beliefs type things? Like my grandmother, she would braid her hair. She used to have it all the way down her back, but then by the time I got old enough to recognize her, it had gotten short because she got older and she started losing it. But she would braid, or plait, as she would call it. Yeah. And then any loose hair, she would burn it. She said she didn't want it. A bird might get it and make something else. Did they have some kind of belief system, like if a bird got your hair, something could happen to you or something like that in that town that you grew up in?
I hadn't heard of that, but I don't know. Linda, had you heard of anything like that?
I see her smiling. I figured she had heard something like that. Tell us about that, Linda.
Well, my story is, what I've heard about that is the old people wouldn't let their hair hit the ground because a bird would get it, and you'll suffer from headaches for the rest of your life.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it was.
Yeah.
She would say that, and I being 5 and 6 years old, I'm trying to understand these type of things. I thought I was mature as I could be, and I always thought I was older than I really was, but these type of things were great foundations for when I moved to California. I was able to rely upon my experiences in Louisiana, and it helped me survive that first couple of years, because when you come from a country environment into an urban environment, like you went from there to Chicago, it's a big difference, and you have to make that social adjustment, and sometimes it's not easy for you. First of all, kids can be so cruel. Kids your own age or tease you. Oh, country boy, my name was Carmack. They call me cornbread. Or a guy named Robert, forgot his last name, but he came from Tennessee. They call him Tank from Tennessee. The kids will be cruel like that. I'm talking about your mama and playing a dozen. Yeah, we can live with that. But sometimes they could just be so cruel. So I was just wondering, did you run across that particular thing about the hair? Was just one of those things, you know. Any other beliefs or folk myths that you learn as a kid growing up there?
Well, you know, back to what you were saying about going to Chicago and people picking on you. I was raised with the belief, because we talked about Chicago because my mother had already moved up there a year prior. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the belief that city boys didn't have nothing on country boys and we could take care of them easily. And the first time I returned from Mississippi, the second time I returned from Mississippi, I had gone back and stayed a couple of years. Then I moved back to Chicago in '62. I was challenged by a little bully. And all he had to do was stand in front of me and get too close. And next thing I saw him running down the street. So I'm not gonna tell you what I did. So, but no, I didn't play that, you know, and I defended myself from the time I moved back to Chicago, not only against individuals, but also fighting gangbangers.
Wow,
you know, so,
gangbangers.
Yeah, and back then they weren't always the type that would cut or shoot you, you know, like they would do today. So, you know, they believed in fighting and that they would cut you at once if they could, but mainly, you know, they would fight fair, you know, and then you can handle them. But yeah, I didn't run unless I was outnumbered extremely.
Yeah, you know, I want to move on to another area that always intrigued me about living in small towns, and I'm sure your town was no different than Shady Grove or Cedar Grove, where I grew up in Louisiana. Because you and I are the same age, we growing up in the early 50s in Shreveport, you weren't allowed to go to a doctor. We didn't have a doctor. If you didn't have a midwife amongst your community people or where you lived, or you didn't have somebody that knew folk medicine, you were in trouble. Somebody gonna die because I watched a kid die out in the streets in front of my grandmother's house in the Rock Road in Shady Grove because he got hit by a 2x4 and he laid there. No ambulance came for him. Eventually, a mortuary, black-owned mortuary, sent somebody out, picked up the body, and told his mother that he had gotten killed, and that was it. No police, no nothing. They don't come unless some white person got robbed or I'm just trying to get an idea. Did you guys had any special type of cures or medicines that you would take? I know for us, my grandmother once gave me some turpentine. We had the bad case of the croups. I guess that's some kind of coughing, a heavy duty coughing where you got a lot of mucus and you have to knock that out, and you can't get to the doctor, and there was no antibiotics for you. So we drank cow chip tea. We drank all kinds of home remedies. What kind of some of the things that you may have been experienced to?
Well, we had everything from corn shuck tea to day's work chewing tobacco.
Day's work. I like that. Day's work. Go ahead.
Now they would make the corn shuck tea, I believe, because, you know, it would help.
Is that for colds?
Fight colds, fevers, or whatever it was. You know, I can't remember. Some of the things we did came from the store, like black drought and cocoa quinine. And
black drought, right? That's a yellow box. That's a little yellow box
with a person, whatever. I can't remember, but it was the more tolerable kind. But the cocoa quinine and the other things. But as far as the corn shuck tea, we would drink that and the cod liver oil and things, you know, of that nature. But then this is the interesting story about how tobacco juice, and it had to have been chewed. They didn't crush it up in a.
I got you. My grandmother put some of that. I had a grandmother. Well, both my grandmothers dipped snuff, but before my experience, I was 4 years old, living in the sawmill quarters. This is 1954, and I saw some Bullet of the Woods chewing tobacco, plug sitting on the table, and I grabbed it and bit off of it, thinking I was gonna sneak and get a piece of candy. Like I thought it was like a Hershey's candy bar.
Right. Well,
and I ate that. I got so sick, and my parents.
But let me tell you this. This is what I was a little boy running down the road on the farm, and I ran into a bumblebee, and he stung me. Boom, right there.
Put that snuff on there.
And then a big knot, and so I ran back to the house, told my grandmother. So she got some tobacco and chewed it up. Then she took the tobacco out of her mouth and then pressed it up against the knot that was on my head.
The wound.
And I guess that got rid of it. The other cure we had was for chicken pox. Now I'm not going to say which one of my relatives, my aunts did this, but I'm sure it was them because they were pretty much always there to help take care of us. When we had the chicken pox, my uncle and myself, we're the ones who were the same age, my uncle Eddie and myself. What they did in order to get rid of the chicken pox, and maybe some other country people knew about this too, they took us out in the back of the shotgun house, similar to that shotgun house back here.
I see it.
Not the white one, the other one, the over here. That one.
Gotcha.
But they took us out in the back of the house, and we had a chicken roost, chicken coop, and everything back there. So they had us squat down under the chickens who were roosting, and they got behind the chickens, and then they shoo, and chickens flew over our head, and that was the cure for chicken pox.
The chickens flew over your head.
I don't know how many other people believe that, but we believed it.
Hey, people believe what they believe, and if you get up your mind.
Yeah, it must have worked because we didn't get we got rid of the chicken pox. Right?
You here today?
Right.
I don't know. I remember. I don't think I ever got the chicken pox. I think one of my brothers or sisters did. But I did have these weird things. I stepped on rusty things because we ran barefooted all the time in the summertime. Yeah. And you go, like I said, you can't go to a doctor. So if you cut your foot on an old open sardine can or something like that, you have to get that a dish dealt with. So my grandmother would take some dry salt pork and a penny. After she cleaned the wound out, she puts that on the bottom, the copper penny on the wound, directly on the wound, and put the the dry salt pork over that, and then she wrapped it up in a bandage made out of an old cloth diaper. In those days, we had cloth diapers. We didn't have the things that kids use today, little self-contained diapers. But in about 7 days, man, you pull that off. All of the swelling and any poison is in that fat meat and that penny. You toss it because it's green and ugly looking, disgusting.
Oh, yeah. And who's to say that didn't work?
It worked.
Yeah.
I'm here because I didn't get lockjaw.
Hey, that's right. And they said that if you stepped on a rusty nail, and they said you would get lockjaw. Now I know I stepped on a rusty nail once. I didn't get a lockjaw, but I can't remember what they did to help it. But I just know one thing: it hurt. But,
yeah, and the thing about small towns, man, you're gonna run across interesting things. I wasn't being so young. I wasn't able to be as curious as I would have liked to have been once I got old enough to see, that went down. I wish I could have asked this question. It was like if I was in a time machine now, I would like to go back in time and ask those questions of people like your granddad or my granddad or my grandmother who lived across the trail from us in the shotgun house, had a smokehouse over there. They had a hog pen, and my job wasn't like yours to go get rid of the insides because I was still too young for that. But I used to know this man named Mr. Elmo. He used to go hunting he used to be the hunter in the neighborhood in that quarters, and he always had a shotgun or a rifle, and he'd come back with a rabbit or something for my mom or a coon or something for somebody. My grandmother on my father's side loved to fish, but man, these home remedies, like you took me way back when you said she took that plug of tobacco. I got stung by a wasp or a bee, or I think it was a wasp or a dirt dauber, as she called them.
Yeah, dirt
And
dauber.
he took a piece of that snuff bit of that chalk and put it on that wound, like you said. It's like a poultice for it.
Right. Yeah.
And no swelling. If swelling went down, I don't know what it is, the tobacco or the saliva, or I don't know, a combination of all of that.
Probably a mixture of both of them. That's right.
And see, that's the thing. That's the beauty of coming from small towns. So when you come from a small town like you and I did, and then you move to the city, you got an innate ability to survive, no matter
Yes.
what comes down.
That's right. Yeah, and you I think it makes you more creative. You know, you grow up, you think about these things, and then you start to wonder, did that really work? But then you don't know for sure because you're not a scientist.
No, we're not. But we ask questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And the curiosity.
Might have worked.
Yeah, the curiosity.
Yeah. What are we looking like on time?
We got about 5-6 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So
we started about 2 minutes late, so about 6 minutes.
Yeah. So
we can wrap up.
Yeah. What I would like to I'm going to do a plug for Mayersville, Mississippi. Every year we have a town reunion, a homecoming. We're having one this July. I think July 2nd. I intend to go there since I'm closer by. I'm not out in California, so I'm closer to my hometown, and I'm going to really try and get out there and just experience the fresh air and the smells and things that I miss so much. And but I want everybody to know that Mayersville, Mississippi is not just some little town by the Mississippi River. Mayersville, Mississippi has a very rich history. Look up Mayersville. Look up Mayersville, Mississippi on Google and read the history of Mayersville. Some very tumultuous times, some deep history, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And also, look up a guy by the name of, let me see, and I wonder if anybody still remembers this guy. Guy by the name of Muddy Waters. Does anybody remember him?
Didn't he used to live in the projects?
Yeah, hey, Muddy Waters, I know they used to have on television, and he even said it himself. And then I learned a little different. He said that on an interview that he was born in Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Now, he might have been born close to Rolling Fork, Mississippi, because Issaquah County and Rolling Fork, Mississippi, which was Sharkey County, they are kind of close by. But I was born in Issaquah County only because I was born on the farm down in Mississippi, Issaquah County, which is Mayersville just happens to be the town seat. But I was not born in Mayersville proper. I was born down in Issaquah County on the farm next to a dirt road across from a cotton field. Muddy Waters was born in Issaquah County. And, I think they eventually changed it because Issaquah County, Mayersville, Mississippi, Highway 61, now we can include Highway 1 and Highway 14. This is the road to the blues, the road to soul music, the gospel highway, where all the soul stirrers and the Mississippi Blind Boys and all the other gospel groups traveled to come to the churches when we were little kids and rock the house and rock the juke joints. So we have a history, and it's very rich. It's part of the reason America has the music that America has today. And it's part of the reason why so many people, not only in America, but around the world, are familiar with what we produced down in the South, not just in Mississippi, but in Tennessee, down in Arkansas, down in Georgia, Alabama, all over the South. And like I always like to say, the only difference between all of those places I just mentioned and Mississippi is the name. If you take away the name, you wouldn't know one part from the next. until you got down to the Gulf of Mexico, maybe. Down near the Lake Pontchartrain.
Oh yeah, Lake Pontchartrain. Hey, let me ask you this last question before we wrap up here today. Finish this sentence for me. I love Marvel because
it made me who I am today. It taught me how to be my own man. It taught me how to do for self. It taught me not to rely on getting the approval of the plantation owner. I only had to know that it worked and know that I had the ability to do it myself.
Wow. Well, that's exactly it's really, I think that's kind of a part of growing up in small towns. And I don't know what it is. I can't really put my finger on exactly on it, but it's all of the things that we discussed today. Plus, you always had that little plus sign. In other words, okay, super. If you say it's super important that I learn all I can about this because I got all this experience, and then I wonder where did it come from. And then when you start to examine yourself and go internally, you find out that all these little things that we just discussed about, that little house back there, that tree, the snakes that's out there in the forest and back, that little rustic looking house right there takes me back. I know it does for you, and all your experiences. And then that stuff comes up inside of you when you on stage one night, all of a sudden singing a song, The Power of Love, or you singing a Sam Cooke tune, or you're singing one of the Robbins tunes, or you're singing one of the Olympics tunes. All of that stuff comes up. And in music, we try to draw upon whatever our experiences are to convey that message to the audience. And I think coming from small towns, and when you really look at, that's a lot of people say, hey, I'm from Philadelphia, I'm from Chicago, I'm from that. But when you really peel back the core, they're probably from some little town. They'll say that's right outside of the main city. They're not always from those cities they named, but because they was ashamed at first, but then as you get on, some people just never been ashamed of where they came from.
And why should you?
Bush,
where you came from.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between Chicago and being born down in the sticks? It's just some buildings that people built up. That's about it. Before Chicago was Chicago, it looked just like Mississippi.
Is your mom gonna love you any less? Or your grandfather gonna give you less advice or more advice because you was born in Chicago than you was born in Shreveport or Mayersville? I just think that it's important that people that come from small towns refer or call upon those people that came before them, the spirits of them, to help get them to that next level that they're trying to seek.
Right, and it's not so much, I would say, to end this, is not so much where you were born, is that you were born. Exactly,
and what you did with the time.
Exactly.
So Val, thank you for inviting me to be co-host with you today. I appreciate meeting your relatives. I think her name was Linda, was it?
It is Linda.
Linda and
Linda
Joyce
Short of Mayersville, Mississippi, and my cousin that she didn't get a chance to say anything because she wasn't able to get her sound on. So Rosie Christor. So I really appreciate them.
Hi, Rosie.
And representing Mayersville, Mississippi. Oh, by the way, just in case people are wondering why and how it became Mayersville, this is how it happened, and we'll close with this. Mayersville, when the people came from Europe, they brought their accents with them. And, in Europe, a long A sounded like an I, like, howdy, mate, howdy, mate. And so Mayersville became Mayersville, like the people down there, Mayersville. And so that's not making fun. That's how they said it. And and we brought our dialects from the motherland, Africa. And what we did in the motherland, and you can look at how they talk this very day. We take a lot of letters out of words. We take out the R's and we take off the G's and we take off the T's sometimes. And so what we did, we took all the I's. I mean, we took the R's and the other letters out of Mayersville, and it became Mayersville, or eventually we shortened it and it became Mayersville. That's it.
Hey, Vel, and thanks again. And before we go, tell the good people about this show that you have, and how they can, if they didn't, and they can tell their friends about the next show or what's coming.
Yeah, what we have here is called Meeting in the Green Room. And the green room was where all of us actors would meet just prior to going on stage to do what we do. There's just a place to hang out and go through your lines, to focus, concentrate on what it is that you were going to be doing, whether you were going to be singing or whatever. So what we got a chance to do as well is to converse, talk with each other, and just to go over things that we needed to talk about. And therefore, it made us closer. It made us a community of players, like the Paul Robeson Players theater company that Robert and I are from, which was founded by Robert Carmack and Robert Browning. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so we had a green room. I don't know if we called it a green room, but the little house on the corner of Palmer and Bullis was a green room for us many times, and the other places that we had around Compton, California. But that's where the idea came. We want to come and meet with each other and talk about what it is that's important to us. And that's what Meeting in the Green Room is all about. We're going to be talking about, where are you from, Robert?
Shreveport.
Shreveport.
Or as we call it, Sweetpote.
Shreveport.
SWEE-POTE. Sweetpote.
Shreveport. And so we're going to be doing that in probably our next segment. And we are going to be inviting some other musicians and some other singers, actors, and others in the arts to come.
I would love it if you could, if I could get in touch with Brenton Wood, man. That would really be something.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. You know,
because he's from Shreveport.
Oh yeah. And I thank Brenton all the time for giving me my real break in this business. One for Brenton, I probably still be looking to do something great.
Well, thanks again, man. And I'll say goodbye to the audience. And thank you again for inviting me.
Hey, our pleasure. And thank you for being our guest host.
I look forward to the next show. Thank you.
All right, everybody, take care. God bless. And we'll see y'all the next time on Meeting in the Green Room.